Unprecedented world chaos as the new economic order begins. Things are starting to get really crazy out there. Worldwide closed down travel. Closed down industry. Closed down businesses. Closed down public gatherings. Closed down schools. Closed down economy. This is a catastrophe we are heading to with open arms. Europe is shutting down its main economies. France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK are already out. Europe airports closing down, Canada, Australia, and Singapore applying 14-day lockdown to all incomers. The world is on lockdown as we see deadly second and third waves hit. New variants of the virus that are much more contagious started to spread all over the globe. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Truly, this is a disruption of biblical proportions. The value of the US dollar has been steadily declining, as our money supply is growing at an exponential rate, and this is becoming a major national crisis. It took from the founding of our country all the way to 2020 for M1 to reach $4 trillion. But then, from the start of the pandemic to today, M1 has exploded from $4 trillion to $18 trillion. To call that economic malpractice would be way too kind. The truth is that it is complete and utter lunacy, and we are all going to literally pay the price for such madness. Our leaders are killing the US dollar, and it is being done to thunderous applause. Hyperinflation is on the horizon. The debt-based central bank economy is collapsing worldwide. A month's wages for a day's food is coming. The mark of the beast is coming. Fearful days are looming. There's going to be a lot of pain and suffering. The New World Order is taking over. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are war, famine, plague, and debt. The world is mired in chaos, and remember, out of chaos, a new world order. This old world is just going to wax worse and worse. Our country, as we once knew it, is gone. Timothy 3:1. But know this, difficult times will come in the last days. Timothy 3:13 tells us, evil people and impostors will become worse, deceiving and being deceived. Rather, it comes now or later. A new world order is inevitable as global leaders have been advocating such an objective for quite some time now. This is just the beginning of sorrows. Fiat paper money will always 100% become worth less than toilet paper. It has been shown in history, and it will also be in the near future. New economic order is emerging. Any new delivery is always associated with labor pain. Money cannot keep on flowing from poor to rich for eternity. That is the currency system that has given rise to wealth accumulation via the banking system. Time is coming when the currency will have less value than toilet papers. We need a total re-look at the system of exchange. The whole system is one great big forced Ponzi scheme, and I mean forced. It's like the bankers almost pointing a gun at you and being forced to take loans while the currency turns to toilet paper. The situation is already spinning out of control on a global scale. Troops are patrolling the streets. The Fed has lost control of bonds, market pushing 10-year higher even as they try to buy with QE. They are going to need more. Unlimited cash is being pumped into the stock market. I imagine the next rate cut will boost gold, along with stimulus and QE. Everything is coming together for gold. M1 money supply has gone from $4 trillion to $18 trillion, with more coming, 10% back up the truck. More debt, more bubble. Worse to come. Forget the pandemic. The popped bubble will kill more people. The US is going to become Germany after World War I. The new economic order has begun. Some shelves are already empty. Never mind a recession, sounds like the greatest depression ever is looming. Except that there will probably eventually be hyperinflation. And governments will fight it with QE and negative interest all the way down, prolonging the pain and making it worse. We are headed into a catastrophe. The toilet paper shortage from panic buying must be a reverse psychology thing where they're trying to keep their currency from becoming toilet paper. So they are exchanging it directly for toilet paper instead. These are unprecedented times. This is the collapse of complex civilizations. The system was not set up for efficiency or sustainability. In fact, the system was created by governments to be unstable and inefficient long-term in order to gain short-term rewards. The politicians engage in vote buying through unsustainable government programs, regulations, restrictions, taxation, etc. that needlessly increases complexity within the economy and society. Meanwhile, governments also fail to fulfill their basic duties because more complexity brings more power. Lawyers, politicians, police, military, real estate agents, astrologers, and other charlatans will not be required. Required are carpenters, medics, farmers, clothing makers, electricians, plumbers, etc. A steady-state economy is the only version of the economy that can be sustained for the lifetime of the human race. Growth cannot be maintained in a finite environment, like it or not. The crash of 2008 worked perfectly for the benefit of those who organized it. Whenever the powers that bank rob or cheat people, the standard go-to strategy is to call it a whoopsie doodle, mistake, incompetence, or failure. This absolves them of the full force of being called out on their willful crimes. Today America's greatest expense besides debt repayment, is the military and militaristic support whilst devaluing the dollar by quantitative easing and passing the funds to oligarchs. Meanwhile, the debts and costs are met by the increasingly squeezed masses. The wealthy bribe government officials in order to avoid taxes, causing the government to intensify the tax burden on working citizens. Citizens are relying more and more on credit to pay for necessities. Credit crisis and global recession are looming. The reason for the massive infusion of government funny money is proof of this now. Most public pensions are invested in these junk bonds. When the sheet hits the fan, it's really going to be massive. The entire market is a house of cards built on a house of cards. When people start seeing the bad figures coming from banks, businesses, government, they will get out of equities for years and into precious metals. The crisis, which is just beginning, will explode in our faces. The financial illusion has popped. And this is just the smoke. Real fire is on the way. The stock market has been highly inflated in recent years by QEs. It is high time that the bubble burst big time. Recession at this point just means depression due to debt loads. There are only 4 quarters in a year, so, after 90 days, the results will begin showing off one's efforts, whether they're good or bad. Higher-ups messed up in Q1, so multiply that by 4, and the end result is a tree producing bad fruit. The fact that we've not changed course in Q2 means we multiply by 2, and at the end of the year, we have a global recession. Well, no point for us common folk to wait for the leaders to get the house in order. Time to get our own houses in order and prepare for a modern Great Depression. Everything that has a beginning has an end. Even our Constitution. All societies collapse. All. There is no way out of what's coming. There is no legitimate economy. There are financial manipulations masquerading as the invisible hand. The global economy is the greatest theatrical show on earth. And while you watch the show, they are emptying your bank account. The dollar will end up becoming Swiss cheese. It will lose its world reserve status. Massive U.S. consumer defaults incoming. The printing press will be rolling rates negative, and all those holding cash will sprint back into gold. This is not only a credit crisis. This is a defining moment in America's history. The banking sector will be the next shoe to drop due to its exposure. Not just because of the loans for airlines. Most of those new planes are on a lease. If they don't fly, the companies will default on the lease because the lease cost is like 50+% of the cost of the flight tickets. Add to that the 737 MAX groundings, that's 800 planes that the airlines then had to reactivate at great cost, older models to keep their lanes open. These old planes also have hidden costs to the airlines as they require extensive maintenance and a prolonged period on the ground. These planes will need ridiculous amounts of work to be safe to fly. And those parts aren't made anymore. But one thing is sure in all 3 cases. Market operators ensure that always money flows from poor to rich. Fracking is criminal. It was always their business plan to pull out oil and gas at a cost greater than what they could sell it for. So they needed the banksters and the government to fund them with loads of debt. But it didn't matter because their plan was always to go bankrupt, walk away with the money, and leave shareholders empty-handed, saddled with the debt, and polluted water tables. This is probably going to push U.S. credit markets over the edge. But as the Fed already announced, they will take unconventional steps as necessary. So first, they're going to do will probably be to start buying debt of shale producers. Greed worldwide surpasses intelligence yet again. It's not like any of these outside sources of our required oil are at all honest and uncorrupted. Not sure how the Fed is going to make up for it. But I know they will cause the rich to get richer as the upper and middle classes will sell off like mad at the opening bell. The rich will buy up more at a huge discount. A setup, you might ask. Yes, of course. The game is to sink the US dollar and bring in a new global currency, new fiat reserve currency. Hopefully, gold backed in part. We are now in a global recession. Get out of the markets as soon as possible. The forward-thinking companies see what's coming and will get ahead of their revenue, profit drop by cutting expenses now. Most companies' largest expense is people. This is the easiest and most immediate way to cut costs, expenses. Many companies start by reducing hours and then start to let people go. Some companies terminate full-time employees and then use temp agencies when people are needed. If you are an employee, it is a good time to get your resume into temp agencies now. When this starts, they will be inundated and will not bother taking new workers, in most cases. These terminations ramp up quickly, and within 90 days, or sooner, the housing market gets wiped out. If you want to sell your house, list it now. Your savings, cash value will drop, your portfolio, retirement account, house value, all will drop. The U.S. commercial real estate market will crumble. Taking tax revenue from Social Security and other programs to promote the stock market. Go big on debt or go home. The reason for the stock market's bounce is debt, and the real reason for the decline in stocks is the debt bubble. How ironic. History shows that pandemics open the doors to revolutions, political destabilization, economic collapse, a war between countries, and erosion of human rights leading to martial law as a reactionary means of governments pushing back. Yes, it will all unfold very quickly, just like the sudden crash of the market and coming up with the closing and lockdown of businesses, schools, and free movement. It's all documented in similar events in the past. America is a spoiled, whiny country that the rest of the world holds in contempt. We are not sheltered from the suffering countless people around the world endure on a daily basis. Time to put on big boys' pants, playing reverse psychology on the markets. What's good appears bad and what's bad appears good. I continue to buy gold and silver when I can, and I am thankful for the steep discounts.